Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and start off with our Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm going to be holding up the flag for those who are here, but also those who are seeing us remotely, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And for those of you at home, if you could go ahead and please be seated. Go ahead and mute so we minimize the potential background noise for you. I want to welcome you who are here and also via Zoom to the most beautiful spot in Topeka. And more importantly, it is now the home of the Rotary Club of Topeka. And believe me, I'm excited about that. Quick look around. I don't think we have any guests, or do we have any online that you have seen, Steve? Okay, we'll skip over that. I do have actually quite a few announcements, which I feel good about because that makes me feel like things are kind of picking back up. For those of you via Zoom, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. Steve will be monitoring those, and then we'll convey them to either me or our speaker. I wanted to, and I'm going to have to leave the lectern here in a second, but exciting news. Our club did get the presidential citation for last year. And most of you know, it is, although Joni did a great job, and we have some kudos for her coming up, but it is a citation that comes from the Rotary International president to our club for the club's achievements. So, and I think that's pretty significant considering we had almost half the year in COVID. And we quit doing in-person meetings, what about the fourth quarter of the Rotary year. So that was very good. Now I'm going to step away for a second, and I'm going to ask Joni to come up.
That's good, right there, Jonah. You're a little distant. I don't have a zoom on my camera yet.
For everybody, well, to those out there, and also got a little gift for Joni in appreciation for all that she did. And let me tell you, Joni spent a lot of time, and is still spending a lot of time, and I appreciate her support. So for a little bit of paper, sorry about that. All right, a Rotary crystal face.
Go to this one.
Yeah, hold it up right there. You'll see it.
That's fine, doesn't it?
Come into this.
Well, sometimes you
up a little bit higher.
okay, there we go.
Woohoo!
Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
That works off the assumption you got a good battery.
Well, it's a brand new battery.
Oh, okay.
You want to set that?
I'd be happy to hold that for you.
Can I bring this cord?
I don't think we need it. That's a new battery.
And sorry to use those of you at home for me jumping around quite a bit, but I did want to make that presentation.
Just a second.
Yes?
I'm going to say something. For those of you who aren't here, there's a propensity of men here, and they're all pointing.
We do have a service project coming up. It's still in the planning stage, but I want to at least give you a heads up. Some of you know Kim Ledbetter, who has Prairie Glass Studio. And Kim helped us out raising money for polio several years ago. As I recall, she did a portion of her sale proceeds towards that. And in fact, we awarded her a Paul Harris Fellow. You probably saw in the Capitol Journal, the building that she is in, as well as two other tenants, has some structural issues. Kim and the other tenants are going to have to move, so we are going to help Kim make that move. And so we'll need some help with packers and unpackers. I think Steve's already delivered some boxes. We may need a few vehicles, but as that gets firmed up, we'll have more information for you in the future. Wanted to let you know the zoo, and I can't tell you how accommodating the zoo has been to our club. Absolutely. And by the way, we have Brendan Wiley here now, who's sitting down in the back of the room, and thank you for attending, Brendan. But I can't say enough good stuff about the zoo. They have been super and been extremely helpful. And again, like I said earlier, the most beautiful spot in Topeka. They have their fundraiser actually already starting now. It's their fall fundraiser. Their other 4 previous fundraisers had to be canceled. It'll be virtual. There will be a live event on Saturday, October 10, and that will be on their Facebook, the Friends of the Topeka Zoo Facebook page. But in the meantime, there's another link I put in, it would have been Tuesday's email, and there's a link to sign up if you want to bid on the prizes. There are a lot of prizes. There are raffles for some of the bigger prizes. So please give that a look, and let's try and help the zoo. I think that is the end of my announcement, so I'm going to introduce our speaker, who almost everybody knows. Gordon Lansford and his wife Phyllis moved to Topeka in 1979 from Dallas. He was with IBM at the time. Gordon and Phyllis have 3 grown children. They are Leslie, Gordon III, and Becky. All 3 are happily married. They have 6 wonderful grandchildren. 3 of them have graduated from college and are on the job. There's an exclamation point there. And by the way, I'm doing exactly what Gordon wrote. One is a senior in high school at Blue Valley. One is at Illinois Wesleyan as a sophomore playing basketball, and one is still deciding where the front door is. So, okay. Gordon has been a Rotarian for 40 years and is very proud of what Rotary accomplishes. And most of you do know, although some of the newer members may not know, Rotary, Gordon is past president of our club. Gordon's hobbies are scuba diving and growing roses. And with that, I'm going to ask Gordon to come up to our table.
This is unusual, to say the least. Talking to a group of you here and talking to ever how many are out there. Steve, how many? Okay. I am so pleased to be able to be here today for this first event in what I can tell you, you all can see this who are here, is the most beautiful setting I've ever seen. I mean, I've been all over Kansas and I've never seen anything like this. And to imagine what it'll be like after it's developed for a few years, because it just gets better and better and better. I don't know where to look, out here or down here. Can you hear me in this room? Okay? Can you hear me all right online? Larry Dimmitt, thank you for nodding. Appreciate that. Okay, thumbs up out there. Okay. So,
You getting ready to start?
I think so. How do I do that? No, let me just push a button. No, that's not it. This is Tom Gorell, my technical assistant. Do I just, or what, that breathed all over. Thank you, Tom. between Tom and Steve, it's been very easy for me to try and put my thoughts together on this, but I think this will, you'll find it to be quite a bit different than the programs that we've been either having prior to COVID or the programs that we've been having during COVID, because with COVID, you could, wherever they had a laptop, they could be a program from anywhere and everyone could get together. So my discussion today, and I hope it can be a discussion, is my personal story, and it's what's happened to me over the last few years and what I'm doing now. But I thought I'd start by, because I was at a point, so I said, so now what? What shall I do? I'm here, I'm available. And so to begin with, I'll give you a little of my background, so that'll help you see how strange this whole decision process was. So I started with IBM in June of 1968. I worked for them for 30 years and retired. They have the old kind of program where you can retire and they send you a check for the rest of your life. So I've had 52 or 53 years of checks from IBM. I've never seen a check from IBM because they had direct deposit in 1968 when I started. Then I retired in 98, twiddled my thumbs. Don Hyman, who was the director of the CIO for the state at the time, invited me down to the Secretary of State's office to be part of a committee because they were going to choose a new system. And I was the director for KC, just for those of you who don't know what that is, Kansas Criminal Justice Information System. So I had an opportunity to learn a whole new industry, if you want to call it that, during the time I was with the state. And I retired in March of 17. And the bottom line is, by the time I had taken some trips and done things like that, I was totally bored out of my mind by the time the fall of 2018 rolled around. So now I really had been thinking about what in the world am I going to do with the rest of my life. I was only 53 when I retired from IBM, and 20 years older than that when I retired from the state. But seriously, I just can't sit around and not do anything. So I won't go through all this. I'll save a little bit of time. But Phyllis and I had never been to Vienna. Her mother was born in Vienna, and we had never been there. So we put together a trip and went through all that segment of Europe. I'd choose Switzerland if I had to make a choice. I know we have some travel folks here. Scuba diving is one of my pastimes, and I think I got in a half a dozen trips in that time period. We had family events. I think somebody got married. I don't know. There's too many of them to keep track of. But seriously, by the fall of 2018, I was doing this: watch TV, eat. Watch TV, eat. I mean, it's it's good if your wife's a great cook, which Phyllis is. And by the way, I couldn't have done any of what I'm going to tell you about today without Phyllis. She's the one who helped me do all of the things that I'm in the process of doing. But my key question, and I highlighted this specifically, is how can I stay active? Now, I get up and go to the gym, not my thing. I have to eat right to stay healthy, but what combination of things can I do that will keep me active and healthy? So I researched the market. I put I just Googled old retired guys' jobs kind of thing, and actually found some opportunities. And I've always wanted to learn electricity, so I thought, well, maybe that's a good choice for me. I love to paint inside and outside, so I could paint houses. I really like the landscaper idea, particularly given that we're here at Kay's Garden at the zoo, which if those of you who are online were here, you would agree with me. This is a beautiful place. Absolutely top-notch, first-rate, ideal. But I knew if I did that Ann Palmer would sue me. No, she'd hire Jerry Palmer to sue. That's my fourth career. All right. So there were some things that went through my mind that I could do. So think trucking. That just is a natural, isn't it? Doesn't it just roll off the tip of your tongue? I worked for IBM and then I worked for the state, and so now you think trucking. Well, there's a little more of the story, but there's two kinds of trucking. There's over the road. You get in your truck, you drive a long ways, and you're gone 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and you might get to come home for a weekend. And there are, I did some Google statistic kind of things. There are 1.2 million trucking companies in the United States. Now, 97% of those have 20 trucks or fewer. So there's a lot of small ones and a few big ones. But I wasn't a truck driver. I mean, I didn't know up from down, which isn't entirely true, because when I was in college, one of my summer jobs was driving a truck in Wyoming. And I was only 19 at the time, and you couldn't leave the state. So, and I drove for a company called Halliburton. And so I hauled bulk cement, which they used in cementing oil wells, and acid, which is what they use in the fracking of oil wells. So this goes all the way back to prior to '68, prior to when I joined IBM. I did have just a little bit of experience with trucking. So I want to stay active and healthy. I looked at some things, decided I should look at trucking. And as it turns out, there was a news flash on my phone. You know how you get more things than you can do on your phone. And it said, every day the United States is short 50,000 truck drivers. There are loads in a truck waiting to go somewhere and nobody to drive them there. Well, that says to me, opportunity. There must be some opportunity there. So where am I now? This is like 2 years ago. What do I need to do? What do I need to learn? So I did the thing that all IBMers do. You build a spreadsheet. Mine's 12 columns wide. I picked out the 12 companies I might like to work for. Did a lot of research and a lot of phone calls. Got it down to the top 3. And then the way I do business, I want to go see the people. I want to see the environment. I want to find out if it's the kind of place that I'd like to work. So I went to all 3 of these companies to find out who they were and what kind of business they were really in. Knight Trucking is, they have 5,000 or 6,000 trucks. They're headquartered in Phoenix. They have a really nice terminal over in Kansas City. And the terminal manager came to my training class, which I'll tell you more about in a minute, was here in Topeka and talked to us and invited me over to see the area. They're traded publicly, even though it's a family business, and they got 6,000 trucks. Swift Trucking is the largest trucking company in the United States. They have 20,000 trucks. You've all seen that big terminal over in Kansas City. And Knight, with 6,000 trucks, acquired, paid cash for, or how they did that, Swift. Swift. So now it's listed as Knight Swift on some stock exchange somewhere. And but they run them as 2 separate businesses. As it turns out, it's a family deal, because people who run Knight also run Swift, and they're all part of the same family, and they all live out in Phoenix. So then I looked at Butler Trucking. They came and talked to our class, and they're very nice. They have only one location in Kansas City. They only pull reefers, which is a refrigerated trailer, so you can haul ice cream in Phoenix in the summer at 20 below, and it'll stay 20 below in your trailer. Or you can haul something that's not at the freezing level at 35 or 36 degrees, and it'll stay there all day long. They just have one owner, Don Butler, and then Crete Corporation, which one of the guys that I was in school with mentioned them to me because they didn't come to class and talk to us because they're out of Lincoln, Nebraska. But they're private, they're family owned. They have a really nice and big terminal in Kansas City. They have 3 divisions, but it's all called Crete. So they have Crete, which is dry vans. So that's just the van that backs up and opens the doors, and it's just a big hollow thing, and it's dry. They pull reefers with a company called Schaefer, and they have all of these companies co-located with the exception of Hunt Trucking, which is out of Omaha, and they run flatbeds. And you quote me on this, I'm too damn old to drive a flatbed because that requires real work. Now the good news is my job doesn't require any real work. They pay me for it. And somebody yesterday said something about money, and I said, hell, I do this job for free. This is so much fun, I can't stand it. So nevertheless, I went to visit my 3 on-site visits. But there was something that stood between me and getting a job because they always said, first question, do you have a CDL? Commercial driver's license. No, I don't have one of those. Because when I drove a truck in college, there was no such thing as CDL. How do I get one? So many companies will offer to train you, but you owe them. So that wasn't an arrangement that I was really comfortable with because you don't know what you got. Most companies won't hire you if you don't actually have some experience. And they say, do you have a year's safe driving experience? No, I've never driven a truck, so I don't have that. Or you do what I did do, is you find a private school. I found one here in Topeka. You get your CDL, which is that ticket that gets you into the game. I spent 6 weeks doing it because I did 2 weeks of all the written work, and then Tom and I and Dana and David Beck from our Rotary Club here, David Beck, already had a trip planned, so we went to the Philippines for 2 weeks, scuba diving over there. And the guy out here said, fine, do your 2 weeks written, come back and do your 2 weeks driving, and then you'll get it all done. So there are 3 parts, as you can see on the screen, to getting a CDL. You have to take the written test. Then you have to, one of their, I don't know what you call them, one of their driving people. They go with you to see if you can back. And they do this out at a course that's set up out on Burlingame, out about 41st Street, where the sports zone is, and you used to be able to get your driver's license right there. Well, that now is the location where you get your CDL, and they use that, what is some kind of a field down below. It's flat, and they drive on it now. So you can prove to them that you can do backing. Now, trust me, backing is not easy. It takes experience. And I was a terrible backer. And they take you on a driving test, and then bang, all of a sudden, you're a qualified CDL driver. Well, that's a long ways from being true, because you have no experience. Until you have some experience, you don't have anything. So I went to shop the market, and so I've got my CDL in hand, which is the first question, and then they want to know how much experience you have. Well, I don't really have any. I drove to Beto Junction back one day. That's about it. So then you've got to find the right company, which goes back to the previous slide. So this is who trained me. And that's the truck I drove. It's older than old. It's, this is before COVID, obviously, but they take the driver trainer and they'll put 3 or 4 people in that cab. It's a sleeper, so you can sit on the bed. It's right behind the drivers, and learn the things from each other that you need to know. This is the truck that I drove when I took my CDL test, and I didn't kill anybody, and she passed me and got my CDL. That's the good news. And if you read the small print, you'd see all the things I learned. All I did was get my CDL. You don't really learn very much, other than the rules of the road, which are hours of service and things like that. You learn how to read a map and how to log your time. So some paperwork things and some map reading things, and you get your CDL. That's yours truly in the Butler truck, because Butler liked to come over every week and buy pizza for lunch for the crew that were in class, and I drive that truck today. They're still a nice outfit. Maybe I'll work with them someday. This is the truck that I ended up in with my trainer driver, who lives up in Nebraska, and he's that's a dry van you see in back, so it doesn't have a refrigeration unit on it, and they have both blue cabs and red cabs, and that's because over time, 2 companies, Crete and Schaefer had blue trucks and Crete had red trucks, and now it's all jumbled up, so you don't know who you got, except the kind of trailer they're pulling when you see them going down the road gives you the clue. So if you see that CCC, Crete Carrier trailer, that's a dry van. That person works for Crete. If you see him pulling a sort of a white and blue trailer that says Schaefer Trucking on it, then they work for Schaefer. And if they're pulling a flatbed, they work for Hunt, but we're not going to do that. So my driver trainer's name was Steve. They normally send you through the training program in 6 or 7 weeks. I knew that I wanted to expand the possibilities as far as opportunities go. So I said, here's what I'd like to do, if you don't mind. And I'm talking to my employer now. If you don't mind talking to the training manager, I'd really like to spend some time with Steve, and then I'd like to spend some time with what a guy turned out to be Robert. I want to learn the manual shift, manual transmission, ever how many gears that is, and pull a dry van, and I did that with Steve, and we were out for 6 weeks. And then I'd like to go out with Robert in his truck, who's pulling a reefer. So I'm going to learn all the reefer side and how you keep your produce or whatever it is you got in the trailer at the right temperature and take care of the reefer. And oh, by the way, that truck has an automatic in it. So I learned both the manual transmission and the automatic transmission. I'm telling you that in today's new trucks, that automatic transmission is smarter than any of us in this room. it's backed up by more computers than you shake a stick at. The speed limit going down the west side of Loveland Pass, going downhill, if you're a trucker, is 35 miles an hour. You cannot exceed that. First of all, you kill yourself if you do. Second of all, it's against the law. So at the top of the hill, you get to 35, you push some buttons on the steering wheel, and that truck will not go any faster than 35 all the way down the west side to Grand Junction or wherever we end up out there. So Steve was a good guy, a good trucker, been around for a long time. Now you're going to have to look closely at this picture. I don't know how it looks on your Zoom screen at home, or it's sort of hard to see on the screens in here, but on the side of his truck, you can see that, I don't have a pointer, do I? There's a little verbiage on the side, and it basically says, I've been a truck driver and I have 30 years of experience. He actually had been driving for 31 years. He was a crotchety old son of a gun. And he wasn't going to take any, you know what, off anybody. And right below it, he says, I have 4 million miles on my logs. So he'd been driving for a long time, had a lot of experience, went all the way back to the old days. And he was a very, very good trainer. The interesting thing you might notice, you see on the corner of the trailer there, the numbers are written backwards. Why is that? Can anyone tell me? Yeah, so you can actually read the number of your trailer. So if somebody asks you what trailer you're pulling, you can read that number in your rearview mirror. Clever idea, but they're all handwritten. So truckers along the way, you know, they've got 6,000 trucks and I think 15,000 trailers collectively, because trailers sit around all the time. Oh, by the way, this is where I lived. I lived in the upper bunk, which is a little, it's not any wider than this podium right here. Just, you know, it's not twin size. It's not that wide. It's long enough. So I took my summer weight sleeping bag, and that's where I lived for all those weeks. And the same was true when I went with my other trainer, Robert. And that's the foot end. So I had several bags. You see the one with the toothbrush sticking out of it. Well, that's the one that I would take inside the truck stop with me into the men's room to, at least in the morning, brush my teeth, because that's about all I did. And occasionally I'd take a shower, not too often. And took my backpack and a bag with some clothes in it, and then I had one more bag that she graciously loaned me a storage space for that. And this is what the cab looks like. The key thing is in the right center of the screen, you're going to see a tablet with PeopleNet on it. PeopleNet is the software that they use for their electronic logging system. Now, all truck drivers, with a few exceptions, today have electronic logs. So they're using some kind of hardware software combination. In the truck I drive today, it's Samsura, which runs on a Samsung tablet. Really nice, really simple. But that's basically where you're going to live all day, every day, whether you're asleep or whether you're awake driving. And the good thing about Steve is he picked me up in Kansas City at the terminal over there. It was pouring down rain. And we headed north up to I-80, and he drove a couple hours, and he said, okay, it's all yours. I mean, you couldn't see the road. The spray that truck puts up behind you, I couldn't see anything behind me. So the mirrors were sort of semi-useless. I was just trying to stay between the lines. Remember, I'm not a truck driver. I don't know how to do this. And oh, by the way, you got to shift at the same time. It's a 10-speed. 10-speed transmission is what I started with. So it's got 5 in the low range, you flip a button, you got 5 in the high range. So we went a lot of miles together, probably, we went at least 15 or 20,000 miles together. And this is Steve in one of our first stops, because we had been down to Atlanta and ended up in Alabama and went to an insulation plant. And then we drove back to Wisconsin. That's where this picture was taken. And they wanted Steve to drive all the way around the building that was there to the new construction and do a blind side back. Now that's basically exactly what it says. You can't see where your trailer's going because you ain't got no window in the back. So you can't look out and see. And he wasn't real sure about that, but Steve, 30 years experience, you know, he's not going to be pushed down. So he did it, and he did it perfectly. They were thoroughly impressed. We were hauling rolls of insulation that you see right there that came from a plant in Alabama, and we hauled them to Wisconsin, and they are the ceiling insulation for this building that's under construction. And that's how well he did it. You can see how well he parked there. And he came in between those, there's 2 cones down at the end, and they're just barely wide enough to get through, and he backed in through that. I was impressed. So they covered up the insulation. We went down the street, and we ended up in, they make paper up in Wisconsin. So we picked up a load of, what do you think those are besides boxes? You're right, they're McDonald's napkins. Embossed McDonald's napkins. And we took them to Phoenix. So now we're in Phoenix. I needed a refill on a prescription. So we just found the nearest CVS, which is where I get mine, and drove over there. I ran inside, called the guy ahead, told him who I was, what I needed. He looked it up on his computer and said, no problem, I'll have it ready for you. Just come inside and look it up. We took off down the road. We picked up some more boxes of Hanover's pretzels. And these are samples that they gave us. You tend to pick up a lot of samples along the way. They're really good. And we took them to somewhere up by Sacramento, California. So I had the opportunity to drive through LA traffic as a new driver. Just stay between the lines and leave yourself plenty of room between you and that guy in front of you, because it does take you a long time to stop. You cannot stop on a dime. And here's just a picture of one place where we spent the night somewhere along the way. All truck stops are exactly the same. The only difference is they're either really old or really new. Love's has built a lot of new ones. They're really nice. My preference. So I put this picture in just to give you a feel for it. It's July, and we're driving over Donner Pass, and I did the drive over Donner Pass 3 times in 10 days, going from California to somewhere in the Midwest, up in Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, wherever it was. Yes, ma'am. Yes, it was. So I can tell you for a fact that if you're going over Donner Pass, you're going to be in 7th gear at about 23 miles an hour going up. And on the downside, you just got to be careful to hold it down a little bit. If you have a question and you're on Zoom, send it in via chat, and my assistant, able assistant, will relay that to me. So this was one of our loads we picked up in Centennial, Nebraska, 44,000 pounds, as you can see if you read sideways, 22 pallets of 2,000 pounds each. And they didn't use pallets. Here's what they did use. They used nylon bags, and they have holders on each of the four corners that have a loop in it. So your forklift driver can pick up that bag just by putting those two forks through two of the loops, and they haul it across the dock, and they stick it in the truck, and you get it all tied down so it doesn't roll around while you're driving, and so you don't lose any red kidney beans, light red kidney beans. And we got to this place in California, about 100 miles south of Sacramento, and we're there about 4 o'clock in the morning. The guy shows up, opens the gate at 5 o'clock. He said, "I am so glad to see you. We are totally out of light red kidney beans." And he was dead serious, because they package beans, all kinds of beans, and they needed those. So we were first in line, and first in, first out. We ended up, I put this in just because the guy was really nice, up at a plant in Michigan. And I don't know if which company actually makes these. It's called Keebler, but it's might be Kellogg's. Anyway, whoever makes these Scooby-Doos, and we had a nice visit about our kids and about life in general, and we took off, and he came out and stopped the truck, flagged us down. And he had gone into the plant, which is all at the other end of the wheel, and gotten 2 bags of Scooby-Doos that were still warm, and brought them out and gave them to us. So we had some great snacks on the way to wherever we were going. One of the things that happens is you have flats along the way. And I remember this specifically because it was July 1st. And all the new trucking laws go into effect on July 1st. So when you go through the weigh station, you normally expect them, expect them to look at your weight to make sure any one of your axles isn't more than 43,000 pounds, which is the limit. And they were much more interested in the new laws that went into effect. So they were looking for somebody who was at fault on this new law that they could write a violation for. And he has some kind of a laser gun, and he pointed over our truck. He says, "You got a flat, pull around back and get it changed." That's all he did for us. But it was significant because it was flat and would have come apart somewhere along the way. They had a service, they had Lowe's on call to come out and put your new tires on. I guess I took out those pictures. So these guys are all over the country, and they'll come out anywhere, anytime. This is Thursday. I've only had 3 flats so far this week. One, I think on Monday, and we had 2 on the same trailer on the same day, 40 miles apart. This was, we left real early that day. We were south of Chicago, and we were going into Chicago. I consented to let Steve drive. He just really wanted to drive, so he drove us into downtown Chicago. I mean downtown Chicago, to a grocery warehouse. Well, that's the end of that. So I learned how to drive a manual shift 10-speed with Steve, and he's a great guy. He did a good job, and he'll probably drive until the day he dies. That's just what he does. And he lives in Norfolk, Nebraska, just outside of Lincoln. And his wife's been a trucker's wife all along. They spend a lot of time on the phone. I don't know what they talk about, but they spend a lot of time on the phone. And when he's not talking to his wife on the phone, he's looking up antique cars on his phone. And he's going to buy this, he's going to buy that, he's going to buy the other. So the big day comes. Now, here's the part I didn't put any slides in on. So I go out with Robert for 4 weeks in his 2020 Freightliner, brand new tractor, and it's an automatic, and it's pretty easy to drive. You just push on the gas and it goes. That's all there is to it. And then it has lots of fancy things that it'll do. And I learned all about the reefer. Robert's a talker. He'll talk your leg off. And so I let him talk and I drive. He talks, I drive. Learned a lot. So the day comes that I've finished my training, and you go back to Lincoln, they drop you off there, they give you a rental car. And they say, this is your truck, number 39517. It's I think a 2015 or 16 Freightliner. They only keep them to 500,000 miles because that's when the warranty runs out. And they sell them before 500,000 miles. And they have a whole yard full of them for sale any day of the week. So they said, your truck's in Mankato, Minnesota. Go for it. Holy crap. I've just barely learned to drive. I can hardly shift. And they send me to Mankato to a Walmart distribution center. And within the walls of the Walmart center is the Crete Center. So we're within the walls of Walmart. So I went inside, met the manager, and he said, yeah, that's your truck over there. Gave me some keys and said, have fun. Sure did. That was the trailer I was pulling. So I'm just going to quickly go through some stuff. One of the first places I went, Target Distribution Center, much like the one we have here. They're all just huge. They got literally hundreds, perhaps 2,000 trailers in any place. This is generally what it looked like when I was driving, because that's the standard Schaefer trailer. And on the back of it, they have what's the name of that Arctic bird? It's a little penguin kind of bird. The penguin kind of bird. It's a small one. That's it, a puffin. Thank you. You win. Well done. So on the back of the trailer is a puffin, because that's what the logo they put together when they started. And when Crete bought Schaefer, they changed it a little bit and put the United States there on the side of the truck. So that was at some truck stop somewhere. And this is what I used. So on top, you see my Garmin GPS. That's truck GPS from Garmin, a really good one. The other one that most people use is Rand McNally. So one of those two you're going to find in most trucks. That PLT thing is your earpiece for your hands-free talking on the telephone, which you really do need to have. I'm really sad because the day before yesterday, mine fell out of my ear. I didn't know that, and I ran over it. So yesterday I didn't have any hands-free talking, but by the end of the day I will have hands-free talking again, thanks to Amazon and UPS. And that's my little friend Lucky, and I have that because when my 23 or 4-year-old granddaughter was 5, she gave me a Lucky like that, except it was much smaller, just to bring me luck. And it's been on the dash of my car, which you'll see outside. If you look, it's my old car. It's now my work car that I drive in the morning, drive to work in the morning. And so she gave me one for my truck too. And right behind it, you see that double pack of turnpike passes, if you will. You can go on any turnpike in the United States with that pack. And Crete had them made up special, so you just take that pack, you stick it on your windshield, and you wouldn't go anywhere, and you don't have to stop. So there's a decision time, and I have to tell you that without Phyllis, I wouldn't have been able to go on the road for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks at a time. And she's a good cook, but there's some things around the house that she had to learn. She never did let me mow the grass, so she claimed that one. So It wasn't a big deal. She did it all the time, but Phyllis has really been a trooper through this because I was essentially gone for 6 months last year, and she took care of everything and did a good job. And I get home for maybe 2 days, maybe 3. But the decision was, and we decided this up front, I told Crete at the time I went to work for them that I appreciate the training you're going to give me. I appreciate the $500 a week you're going to pay me. By the way, the whole industry's by the week. I'd never dealt with that before because I worked for the state and IBM, and you get paid once a month. So I think the state paid every other Friday. Had to make a decision. We're going to stay over the road, or we're going to try and find something local so you can be home every night. Well, it wasn't too hard for me because I thought I had a pretty good handle on the over-the-road trucking. It just means you're gone all the time. You're going to make long drives, and that's good because you can get in, quite a few hours every day, up to the maximum of 11. So we made a decision, and I said, Crete, I really appreciate your help. I'm going to come back and talk to you in a year, which, by the way, is right now. Yeah, right now. And, maybe I'll come back to work for you. So I went to work for a local company, and now I'm going to talk about that. This is the only picture I could find of the first truck they gave me. It was their loaner truck out of Garden City, Kansas. And most of the time it ran pretty well. They all have 13-speed transmissions. This is my truck today. And this is the truck I'm going to go drive today starting at 2 o'clock. So my day's going to run in tonight, quite a bit tonight. It's a 2009 Kenworth. It's got a big honker engine in it, and it'll cruise down the highway pulling our loads at 75 miles an hour all day long, and just set the cruise control. The company, as you can see on the trailer, is R&R Pallets. They're located out at Forbes. We have a 125,000 foot shop out there where we bring in pallets and we rebuild them, or we build them from new, or we do whatever needs to be done. We sell pallets. So I only haul one thing now, pallets. And a full load is about 20,000 pounds, which by trucking standards is like no weight at all, because you can have normally a 45,000 to 47,000 pound load. So we don't have heavy loads, and that's out, that's out headed towards Dodge on some side stop there. That is in Dodge City at the Cargill plant. That was my first day with snow, by the way, and my 80,000 pounds of truck. In Kansas City, Garden City's headquartered for the company. They have the operation here, which is started by the son after he got out of the Marines in 5 years. So I work for a 28-year-old, and he's a really smart guy. He's really good at what he does. He knows the business. He grew up in the business. In Kansas City, we have this location, and they build a lot of pallets. They take a lot of our pallets in, but a lot of them end up in the bag that you buy at Lowe's when you get red mulch, because that's what we're making there, mulch out of pallets. That's at the Kroger Distribution Center in Hutch. There we are in front of the R&R Pallet, which is out at Forbes Field, right immediately south of the Air National Guard. So they're just across the fence north of us. This is me in the caves down by Neosho, Missouri, at delivering pallets to the VA office. They ordered 2 loads of 6,000 pallets each, so they have 12,000 pallets that they're going to ship records off that they've already digitized and get some new records in the caves. That's the entrance. That's how you know how to find it. If you can't find the clearance 14-foot sign, you're in the wrong place. And I was in the wrong place the first time, so I had to go back the next day. Some of our drivers take their friends with them. A lot of drivers have their friends with them. This is a pallet company in Kansas City where pallet companies do a lot of business back and forth. This is when I had an interesting odometer reading, but so I put about 75, 80,000 miles on this truck. It's about 10,000 miles a month. This is inside the plant, and there are guys that work along that blue rail, and they finish a pallet, it goes down to the end, gets stacked up, and then somebody on the forklift loads it on some kind of a trailer. And Tom was sure we didn't have enough pictures, so this is a life in the day of Gordon at R&R Pallet. I was in a loaner truck because mine was in the shop, so I'm checking out the truck, making sure the kingpin's latched underneath because you don't want your trailer to leave you. Raising the jack stand. Now here's a key. You need to look at the blue screen. In the upper right-hand corner, it's got an 11-hour circle. You can only drive 11 hours a day, okay? In the lower left-hand side is a 14-hour circle. You can only work 14 hours a day. So that gives you 3 hours of where you hook and unhook trailers. So my normal week is 65 to 75 hours. I get up at 4 in the morning. I'm usually on the road with a trailer headed somewhere within probably a 300-mile radius, hauling pallets. And I'll make multiple stops during the day. So that keeps track of me. In the upper left-hand corner is the 8 hours. That tells me how much time I have left before I have to take a break. I have to stop and take a break for 30 minutes. I put a seal on the trailer, got to make sure the paperwork's all right, set up my GPS for where I'm going to go. It's up on the left-hand corner. Make sure the lines are hooked up to the trailer. Make sure the seal is on the trailer. We went over to an organic place in Kansas City, and they unloaded all the pallets. This is Gordon driving down the road. Thanks, Tom. Now here's the gear shift. Forget the numbers on here. The bottom line is, first of all, see that lever in front? Okay, so I got 5 gears that are in the low range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I've got 8 gears that are in the high range, and that's the 4 on the left. So even forget the numbers for a second. It starts with 6, because you got 5 in the low range. Starts with 6, and then a low and a high range, and then 7, low and a high range, 8, 10, 11, and then 12 and 13. So I never have understood why they put this schematic on there, but you got 5 in the low range, you got 8 in the high range, and that's 13. Pallet company. This is the day we had 2 flats. First, we blew out the outside rear dual, and the guy came out and fixed it then, and you can see what it did to our mud flap. Took it up in the tire. So what you're looking at is the tire that was replaced first up in Olathe on I-35, 6 lanes of traffic, all full. The guy came out and put this new tire on, and then down the road at, I don't remember where it was, about 40 miles down the road, we had to have the inside tire replaced. So the guy came out and replaced the tire, and that's the old tire, not any good. And then that's me backing up to the next load that I'm going to do in about an hour. Any questions?
I've got one from the crowd on Zoom. Truckers have been a significant part of the fight against human trafficking. There's even an organization called Truckers Against Trafficking.
Yep.
Can you talk about your experience with human trafficking as a truck driver on the road?
I can. And I'm a part of that organization, Truck Drivers Against Human Trafficking. And it really just gives you information of what you need to be aware of, how it works, what it is they're trafficking, and what you need to keep an eye out for. And I will tell you that in the 18 months or so that I've been driving, I've never run into it. Now, maybe that's because I didn't have my eyes open. Maybe I wasn't in the right place at the right time, but I haven't seen anything that looked or felt like trafficking, and I haven't had to call the manager of the truck stop, or I haven't had to call the troopers from the highway patrol. So, no experience.
That's the only question from the Zoom group.
Any questions right here before I finish? Age limit. Thank you for asking that very important question. That was one of the key questions, because obviously I was 75 last year, I'm 76 now, and the good news is no.
I wanted to know if it's any driverless
You just have to be
trucks.
able to pass the physical, which isn't tough. If you're reasonably healthy, you're going to be fine, and there's no age limit. And I talked to a work comp judge, a friend of mine, and he told me that he had just had a case where the guy had worked for the company for 23 years, and he was up on a ladder and he fell off and he broke his tailbone, and he was, he wasn't really interested in the money. He just, wanted to make a fair deal. He represented himself. He was pro se. And they offered him $25,000. He said, I'll settle for 50. And it was a done deal. He's 96 years old, and he's a diesel mechanic. 96 years old, a diesel mechanic. Think of what careers he had to have before that. There's no age limit. Thanks for the question. Yes, ma'am.
When I was a kid, when my kids were a kid, we went like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be happy to toot that horn anytime somebody wants to see it. It's only happened maybe half a dozen times.
Question, but I don't know how to
Mostly
ask.
grown-ups, not kids. Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. Turn it back to our president. Okay, I gotta do stop share, I think.
That's what I like about Zoom.
Okay, thank you, Gordon. And you know our drill, but since we're a little long, we'll have you sign a book, at which we give to Ross Elementary, and it's shoe time. And one last announcement, I should have made it earlier. We do have the cups out, and we haven't had the cups out obviously for like 6 months. So please go ahead and contribute there. We're not doing a charity per month, but we'll still put it towards service projects. So I wanted to call your attention to that. Last thing is our meeting next week. We'll go back to Zoom. And this seemed to be successful. So I'm anxious to try and do this again, and we may do it in a month's time. Next week, we're going to have Pat Doran, who is the Executive Vice President at the Federal Home Loan Bank. And with that, I'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.